The laugh came through the wire like glass breaking in slow motion. Thin, confident. My sister's voice. "He signed away his ownership," she said, breathless with delight. "Stupid, trusting idiot." I didn't move, didn't blink. The conference room smelled like lemon polish and fear. The screen on the wall glowed with the paused slide. Acquisition summary. My company's logo blurred beneath fingerprints that weren't mine. I watched the sound meter dance as she kept talking. Numbers, dates, a closing dinner planned for Thanksgiving week. My wife's chair was empty. My son's pen lay uncapped on the table. I felt something in me flatten. Not break, flatten, like steel being rolled thinner until it could cut. I ended the recording. The silence rang louder than the laugh. Outside the glass wall, my employees moved like fish in an aquarium, unaware that a hook had already been set. $20 million was the number they were rehearsing in their heads. I knew because I had rehearsed it with them years ago when trust still had weight. I stood, straightened my tie, and smiled at my reflection. The man looking back was calm. He always was, right before a storm decided where to land. It wasn't the first strange thing. It was the accumulation, the way my wife stopped asking questions about my day, the way my son spoke in summaries, not sentences, the way my sister, my blood, started calling me lucky. Lucky men are being prepared for slaughter. I found the meeting invite by accident, a forwarded calendar link that lingered too long in my inbox. Strategic realignment, no agenda, no dial-in code, private room at a law firm I didn't use. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself I was tired. That night, my wife kissed me on the cheek like a habit she'd learned to perform. She said she was grateful. She said we'd done well. I lay awake listening to her breathe, counting the spaces between inhales. In those gaps, my mind built quiet bridges between facts that didn't want to touch. My son had always been careful with money, too careful lately. My sister had always been hungry, too full of jokes lately. And then there was the trust document, a temporary restructuring they called it, a signature to simplify negotiations. I'd signed it months earlier, smiling, believing I was the architect. I wasn't the architect. I was the foundation they planned to bury. I didn't confront. I observed. I pulled phone records under the guise of a cybersecurity audit. My wife's late-night calls aligned perfectly with my sister's yoga classes. My son's emails used language I had taught him, only now it was aimed at me, sharpened and legal. I hired a forensic accountant who didn't ask questions. I asked a private firm to map ownership like a crime scene. Calm face, racing mind. I watched them at dinner, carving turkey with hands that shook just enough to notice. I laughed at the right moments. I poured the wine. Inside, I was counting exits. The shell companies were elegant, empty, clean. My name floated on top of them like a signature on water. The real assets had been siphoned into a vehicle registered to a trust, controlled by my sister, administered by a firm that specialized in disappearing men. I let it continue, because timing is a weapon. I called the FBI myself. Financial crimes don't sleep, but they do appreciate good packaging. I gave them everything, the wire, the documents, the laugh. I booked a villa in Switzerland and posted nothing. Then I sent photos, quietly, to the family chat. Mountains, glass walls, sunlight expensive enough to hurt. My daughter-in-law called first. "If you want to join Thanksgiving," she shouted, "come wash the dishes." I replied, "Enjoy." The results arrived on a Tuesday. Confirmed fraud, conspiracy, wire transfers traced like fingerprints. I invited them to the closing. They arrived dressed for victory. My wife wore white. My sister wore red. My son looked older than his years and younger than his mistakes. I handed out folders. No speech. My sister opened hers first. The color drained fast. My wife followed, eyes skimming, mouth opening, closing. My son didn't open his. He already knew. He'd always known. "Who did this?" my wife whispered. I met her eyes. "You did." Silence collapsed inward. My sister laughed once, reflex. Then she saw the letterhead, the seals, the dates, the room filled with footsteps that weren't ours. The agents were polite, efficient, not interested in excuses. I sat back as if watching a play I'd funded. My sister tried to speak. Words failed her. My wife reached for my hand and stopped halfway, remembering herself too late. My phone buzzed. Once, twice, then it didn't stop. 71 calls by the time they were escorted out. The shell they'd sold was empty, the buyers furious, the trust dissolved, the money frozen mid-flight like an insect in amber. I didn't raise my voice. I stood, straightened my tie, and thanked everyone for coming. Outside, snow began to fall. That night in Switzerland, I turned my phone off. I poured a drink and watched the lights smear across the glass. The mountains didn't care. They never do. They just endure. Betrayal is loud when it happens, quiet when it's finished. I didn't feel victorious. I felt accurate. Somewhere, my sister was learning the sound of doors closing. My wife was rehearsing apologies for an audience that no longer existed. My son would grow into the weight of his choices. I slept well. In the morning, the silence stayed.